Hey everyone, on today's episode, we're talking with our guest about the importance of entrepreneurship, how to kind of be a chronic builder in a company, and something about genetically modifying our animals so they live forever. I don't know, you're going to have to check it out yourself. So welcome to The Flop. Let's come in. Welcome back to The Flop, the place where we dive into business failure and hope to learn something while doing so. If you haven't yet, be sure to like and subscribe on whatever channel that you're watching or listening us through. And then that way you can keep on hearing from awesome people like Ted, the guy we're going to be talking to soon. With me, I have my two co-hosts and good buds, as always, Tyler Cope and Josh Bowman. Boys, how are we doing today?
Doing great.
Thriving.
Excited to have Ted on.
Yeah, I know. I feel like this is a long time coming. A little background. Ted has helped Tyler and I with this business that we keep on alluding to in the pod, which we really need to do an episode on, guys. Mm-hmm. He really helped advise us. He is an intrapreneur, an entrepreneur, and knows a lot about business development. So we're going to have some fun telling some stories here today. Ted, how you doing, my friend?
Doing well, man. Thanks for having me on, Wes. I'm happy to be here. Happy to help you guys out as always. And I've watched some episodes of this podcast.
Oh, have you?
You know, you guys have a good time, and you have some interesting guests, and you talk about the challenges of entrepreneurship, and they are manifold.
I don't think we'll ever run out of content, honestly.
Another way of saying that, as I've said before, is there's a million ways for a startup to fail.
Well, before we get into the interview portion here, let's go into everybody's favorite segment, which is Fails of the Week. Guys, how did we fail this week?
All right, boys. So my fail of the week is my bracket from March Madness. And no, it's not because I actually had a terrible bracket. In fact, the complete opposite. This goes to sports gambling and sports betting. So my final four is 3 of the 4 are correct. And most importantly, I've got the Wolfpack going all the way as NCAA champions. I actually am quite opposed to sports betting. I think it's incredibly dumb. Everybody thinks that they have an angle when they don't. There's just a lot of cognitive biases going on. But the thing is, I just completely botched it because I've got NC State going the whole way. My bracket is in the 0.005% of all brackets. I've been dominating, and I put not a single penny on it. So I'm going to count that as my fail of the week.
So Tyler, your fail is the fact that you didn't sports bet when you're opposed to it.
When everybody and their mom is sports betting, and I'm over here telling everybody that they're idiots for sports betting. Meanwhile, I've got the winning lottery ticket, and I didn't cash in on it.
There is one good way to bet on sports, and that is with someone else's money.
AKB a bookie?
Yeah. I agree. Sports betting is not a smart idea, but if you must do it with someone else's money.
Just like starting a company.
Well, you said that, not me.
Okay, my fail of the week. I like to mention every episode that I recently purchased a Tesla. So of course what I did is I got a nice car, and then I immediately was like, how can I make it better? And I was like, of course I'm going to do the 14 to 20-year-old thing as an almost 34 or 5-year-old, and I'm going to buy a bunch of carbon fiber parts. I'm going to put a spoiler on the back.
No.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
I was about to joke and say you put a spoiler on it.
I'm putting a spoiler on the back, baby. Okay? and some chrome rim covers. Oh man. Because what makes like a $40,000 car look cooler than $350 of carbon fiber extras? Okay.
You better take a picture. We need a picture of that, Bowman.
I'm going to get here's the fail. Here's the fail. It's not that I did it. It's not that everyone told me it's stupid. It's that I applied it and I applied it 1/8 of an inch off where it should be, immediately stuck in the wrong spot.
Nice.
Unable to get off. I spent an hour with Goo Gone.
Nice.
Taking my part and removing every little scratch. And now I got to order the part again.
No, you don't.
I can't give up now.
No, you don't.
No.
You stop while you're ahead. You learned your lesson.
No, Josh, no.
So my fail of the week is I want to get back into fitness. I have been sitting on my butt just taking care of this baby for the past 3 months.
That's a good excuse.
Yeah, so I was like, I want to buy a running stroller. Well, online, new running strollers are like $600-$700. I mean, I'm not spending that for a piece of like metal and plastic.
That's 5 carbon spoilers.
Yeah, 2 sets of carbon spoilers for that much. So I went on Fitz Marketplace, found a stroller. Perfect. I go pick it up. I take it home, and my kiddo is the size where she needs to fit in the car seat. Well, I didn't check if they had a car seat adapter available for that stroller. And guess what? They didn't. So I wasted like $80 on this used stroller and had to buy another one and drive to Sanford in order to pick it up, which is like an hour away. The good news is I ended up posting it with the same exact pictures that I purchased it for and sold it for $5 more. So I made a profit. But wasted, an hour and a half, 2 hours of time doing it.
I'm sure your wife gave you no flack about that at all.
No, not at all. No.
So my fail story is actually it's a semi-fail story, but it's a true story. Y'all are video gamers. Y'all ever played Destiny? It's from Bungie, right? The guys who did Halo, the guys who did Marathon before that. So I'm a fan of Bungie. Played Destiny 2, and I played it on my old PS4. Got a PS5 not long ago, and wanted to be able to move it over to the PS5, and they have a cross-save feature. And so my fail for the week was I thought this would take me 15 minutes. I just log in on the new machine, no sweat. I had to go back to the old machine, completely re-update the software, the operating system, completely update the program, then create another password for that. Then on the new system, I had to not only download and install it, which I kind of figured on, but I then had to install no less than 6 updates and patches. Ooh. And then I had to change my password on both platforms. It took me about 3 hours. That was my password hell.
So Ted, let's hop into some of the stories surrounding your experience here. I know you're like a well-seasoned entrepreneur, a well-seasoned entrepreneur, well-seasoned in business coaching. Are there any stories that you can think of where you just kind of missed the mark, or someone that you've been advising really missed the mark?
No, never. Everything was fine. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day. Just to give your listeners, viewers, a quick background, I've actually been in multiple different business situations and different setups. So I helped start up 3 small biotechs, and then I actually worked in 3 larger pharma companies as well. Co-founded a management consulting firm, did that for a few years, and then have been working in a pharmaceutical clinical trial forecasting firm for the last few years. I think I have a startup problem, Wes. I think I have a startup problem. I can't stay away. They're just fun. Anyway, getting back to the question you asked earlier, Wes. Well, with the biotechs and the clinical trial stuff that I've been doing recently, the technology is really cool. I'm a scientist at heart. I love seeing things that actually work and understanding how they work and the promising markets there. I just find that fascinating.
And I imagine as you're building these companies or these processes or this better way of doing something, Ted, you've ran into maybe some challenges along the way. Many.
Okay, so I got to give you an interview question. I was at a company once and I was interviewing for a role there, and they asked me the strangest interview question I've ever heard. You ready?
What you got?
Tell me about a time you've done something at work that you regret.
Ooh,
hard one, right? I looked out the window, tried to get inspiration from the greenery and the sky, and just sort of let my mind go for a minute, and then I just came back and I said, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't know how to answer this. I don't want to sound like a jerk, but I don't think I've ever done something at work that I regret, because regret for me would be if I said or did something that was intentionally hurtful to somebody. The interviewer went, oh, no. That's not what I meant. I meant, have you ever made a mistake at work? And I said, yeah, of course. Yeah, like daily, right? I mean, right? Yeah, I mean, all the time, right? So afterwards, I actually wound up working there, and I asked this interviewer later. I said, "Why did you ask that question?" And they said that they had interviewed someone before me who had 25 years of experience as a bench chemist, and they had asked that exact question: "Have you ever made a mistake at work?" And this person with 25 years of experience looked the interviewer in the eye and said, "No."
Well, it wasn't him. It was all his lab assistants that made it.
Yeah, right. I know. I mean, either you're incredibly self-unaware, or you're deliberately lying, or you're just a jerk. It blew their mind, right? So they're like, no, we're not hiring this guy. So they wanted to make sure I wasn't cut from that cloth.
But
fair. Yes, Wes, absolutely. I think everybody's had mistakes. Everybody's had flops. Everybody's had things go sideways. And I think this is really important. Just to give you a couple of examples of that, I was at one biotech startup that was a Duke spinout, platform tech for new ways to sort of link synthetic and biological materials together. It was really cool. It was great people. It was really well funded. It had great staff and great technology. It was all good stuff. But they ran into problems funding both R&D, both research and development. After a few years, they had an all hands meeting, and they had the whole company divided up into 2 rooms. And I come into the room I'm assigned, and I sit down. There's a guy sitting there. And he looks at me and goes, thank God. And I'm like, what? He goes, if you're here, this is the good room. And then the CEO comes in and closes the door and goes, okay, guys, you're in the bad room.
Oh, no.
And the guy next to me turns to me, and I'm like, Don't blame me, man. Don't blame me. But they were killing their R to fund their D, right? And so they let go basically everybody on the research side. It was a kick in the teeth, but I genuinely felt like I hadn't done something wrong. I was in a bad situation.
Right.
And so I started sending out resumes and talking to people. And the CEO actually had a connection that got me to another job that was a really interesting opportunity. That was how that resolved.
No, so it sounds like, you went through a couple rough patches where the environment kind of limited your ability to, like, stay at a company, but it all ended up working out, of course. Were there any times, Ted, that you, like yourself, tried something at a company and it just kind of, even though you gave your best effort, didn't work out because of something going wrong?
In terms of things that I personally participated in, one time when I had a couple of interns, it was a summer thing for somebody, and I'm working away, and the intern comes up to me. I've given them some work to do, and they're taking some stuff, spinning some samples down in the centrifuge, and they're doing their thing. And I've shown them how to do everything. I've gone through the process one time with them, and then I'm letting them do it, and I'm doing some other stuff. Right. The intern comes up and he goes, I'm just wondering, is it normal for flames to be coming out of the back of the centrifuge? By flames, do you mean like fire, actual fire? And they're like, yeah, I'm just wondering if that's normal.
Well, if you were that other guy who hadn't made a mistake in 25 years, that wasn't your fault, Ted. That was the intern's fault.
Would have ruined my record, right? It was just crazy. But they were a good person. They just didn't understand. I'll give you another example. I was at a large pharma company where they had a team of 12 people who had worked for 5 years to develop an inhibitor for a protein target in our bodies that is a very important target involved in lots of processes. So this could be a potential drug for a lot of different therapeutic spaces, right? A lot of different diseases. And they came to me because they heard I was doing some new system where I was able to tether that drug to something and basically perform a sort of pull down experiment where you see what in the cell it's interacting with. And they had been doing this in cell-free systems, just using protein. And so they had come up with this exquisitely specific, incredibly tight binder. They were so excited about this molecule. This was going to just blow open markets all over the place. It was going to be great. And so I put it in my system and I ran it. And so then we sat down to review the data. And they said, okay, tell us what it's interacting with. Because they were sure it was going to interact with their protein and nothing else. It was going to be this incredibly strong, incredibly clean setup. And I said, nothing. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, it doesn't interact with anything as far as I can tell. And we sat down for 30 minutes. We went through all the data. And finally, after 30 minutes, I went, oh, you're doing this in cell extract. So this is an aqueous-based thing, a liquid water-based system. And I said, well, yeah, that's what cells are, right? And they said, oh, well, there's your problem. I said, what do you mean? And they said, this thing is unstable in aqueous solution at pHs above 2.
Oh, okay. So it only works in like stomach acid.
Yeah, you got like stomach acid level acidity. Otherwise, the molecule just spontaneously fell apart. Then I had to go and tell other people, we need to kill this program because you're never going to deliver enough to the patient. They were saying they would just dose in incredibly high levels and you would hit the target and then it would fall apart. It would be okay. But it wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to work at all. And again, those people didn't do anything wrong necessarily, other than they pursued it down this highly abstracted system, right? This non-cellular system. They pursued this down a blind alley, essentially, and they optimized for performance that wasn't then translatable back into patients. So they had done something wrong in the sense that they had followed down that rabbit hole, but their processes were internally consistent. So we said, well, let's throw them a big party and reassign them to some other projects.
Great job, guys. Great job. You did such a good job. Let's try something else.
And we said publish, right? Because you can publish that. That's publishable. That's right. Scientific. You develop this incredibly strong inhibitor that's incredibly specific. You could sell that or give it away as a tool compound for the scientific world to use, and it would be of material benefit to research. But you could never put that molecule in a human being and expect it to have any kind of function.
You just deliver it with enough vinegar, right? You just put some apple cider vinegar. That heals everything anyway.
Exactly right.
If you inject sunlight and the vinegar together, there you go. That's where you're
careful where you're going with that, Tyler. But yeah,
I'm trying to appeal to another sect of our audience here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's incredible. People will follow these things down a blind alley.
So what I wanted to ask you about specifically, Tess, I know when you were advising Tyler and I. You were running Corralling Chaos, which was your management company, right?
Initially, yes, that's right.
Were there any particular stories from running your own gig that kind of stand out to you in your mind with like, ooh, wish I would have done that differently?
So just to give background, I left a principal scientist job in order to found this management consulting company, in large part because I had done work when I was at GSK and I had done other work where I was leading teams. And I really had this sense that there are some brilliant people in the technical and scientific space who have enormous potential within their organizations as individual contributors and also as managers, but they never get any management training, right? We'll give the people all kinds of technical training,
Right.
but we don't give people management training. We just expect them, well, you're a good scientist, you should be a good scientific leader.
They're the specialists, right? They're the specialists, but they don't always make the best managers or visionaries or whatever.
Right. And some smart, forward-thinking companies have recognized this and have created, for example, dual tracks, right? Where you have a scientist track and then you also have a manager track. And they at some point, they kind of bifurcate. When I came to actually running my own show, starting my own management consulting firm, that was what I wanted to do, was to enable and empower groups within other organizations, because the leadership structure sometimes does not have the grounding and the support that it needs to provide grounding and support for the people in the organization. And as a result, I got to do amazingly fun work working with different organizations. And it was just an amazing experience to be able to work with these various groups to enable them to do better by their people. Ultimately, we ran into serious headwinds when the pandemic hit because a lot of our work was on-site based. We tried to transition to an online-based system, and I did actually a lot of coaching that way successfully. But it was hard for us to really to rejigger the whole company in the face of the pandemic. We couldn't go into firms and meet with people firsthand and work with teams firsthand. And we tried a number of approaches that were moderately successful or not especially successful. In the meantime, I was hearing about this other company, Diviner, and I thought, well, that would be a really interesting opportunity, a really unique opportunity. We can get to that in a minute. And so at that point, I decided, you know what, I think this is a good time for me to step away and sell my interest in the business to my business partner in the management consulting firm. And so that's what I did. I sold my interest in the company to him, and he's carrying that forward.
And I imagine, like, when COVID hit, trying to go onto a purely computer, system, it's really hard to check the dynamics between each employee, right? And that's kind of, from what you were explaining, that's kind of what you guys were doing, is finding those SMEs, finding those manager types, and like helping them grow and consult with them to how to create a system that works for their company.
Yeah, exactly right, Wes. And I'll give you a microcosm example of how hard it is to do that kind of work in a virtual environment. If we were sitting in a room together, I would be scanning you guys for body language. Some people say we do 50 or more % of our responses through body language. I would be able to tell if Josh was like this the whole time. And if this meant he was really focused, or this meant he was really detached and uninterested. And then I would be able to know, okay, I need to speak to Josh and I need to pull him into the conversation and get him to contribute. Would you agree that would be a nice thing to do, Josh?
I think, Ted, that and using people's names and directly interacting would all be great ways to do that.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
I imagine that is maybe one of the reasons why many companies are like, hey, everybody come back in the office now.
There are advantages and disadvantages, right? I mean, I think the hardest thing for someone who's early in their career working virtually is it's going to be a lot harder to make those relationships that lead to other things.
Totally agree.
Maybe other jobs, maybe totally different things. Maybe you find out about a weekend Frisbee group that gets together, and it's just social fun, right? I respect that younger people who have come through the pandemic are used to working at home. Makes perfect sense. I'm not a fan of dragooning, that is forcing people into the office.
Dragooning.
I was going to say dragooning. That's going in the vocab.
Do you know what that's from?
No, tell me.
Is dragoons like Cossacks, like horses and like running people down with muskets? Like what?
That would be really cool, but no.
Josh, where'd you get that from?
Dragoons.
Dragooning referred to in the British Navy when they had a ship that was ready to sail and it wasn't fully staffed. They would go to the local pubs near the docks, get guys drunk, and haul them onto the boats, and the boats would set sail.
Oh, man.
Hey, you're on the crew now. So you don't do that. That's a bad way to fill your personnel needs. Very bad way.
I imagine won't stick around long, those dragooned folks.
No, once they sober up, they're just going to get off the boat at the first port.
You're interested in new tech, clearly, and all this, all bioscience-y stuff. Tell me, when are we going to combine all this cool CRISPR technology, all this new gene editing with machine learning so that I can like program the baby I want? Like, when is that happening?
Wait, Josh, you want a baby?
Yeah, this is breaking news.
No, I'm just saying, like, if I could choose everything about it, maybe.
Josh, is this a gender reveal party and you didn't tell us? What's going on, man?
I'm uncomfortable with the potential of all the negative downsides? Like, are they going to have all these medical conditions that I have, right?
So I think that there are technical hurdles and there are social hurdles, which are essentially ethical hurdles, right? And I think that, you saw the concerns around Dolly the sheep. I don't know if you remember, that was the first cloned animal. And there were some technical issues with Dolly the cloned sheep, but they did get it to work. And now you can literally, if you have a pet and you've got some of their DNA, you can send that DNA off and get your pet cloned.
What?
Oh, we're cloning Baxter when he dies. Sorry, he'll never die. He'll never die, baby.
He's a baby. He's
13.
The question is, do you know how many dogs and cats are put down every year in this country?
Oh man, I don't know.
It's a lot.
I don't know if I want to know.
Like millions, right? And yet we have people paying thousands of dollars to get Fluffy cloned.
Yeah, Josh, come on.
Tyler's rocking up and down. He's so upset about this.
He looks like a dragoon sailor.
He's on the boat. Yeah, Tyler's been dragooned. He's gone out to sea. So seriously, right now, you can clone your dog or your cat, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But you could also just go down to the local shelter and get a perfectly lovely animal that will cost you a fraction of the amount and give you a new experience with a new pet. So there's an ethical quandary there, right? So if you can alter the gene of a new individual prospectively, that is before they're born, to prevent disease, seems like a slam dunk. But assuming you had a perfect technology where you knew you could go in and have no side effects, and you knew you could take a child who was going to have a significant birth defect and just fix it. That's a pretty compelling use case, right? Where do you stop once you start down that road? Do you want a baby with red hair? Sure, we do a red hair baby.
Hell yeah.
Who wants that?
Do you allow people to just do this willy-nilly without any regulation at all? Or do you say, no, there are certain things you aren't allowed to do, like intellect genes, because that's not fair, or height genes, because we don't all need to play basketball, or whatever the hell it is, right?
I think I'm probably like the way I would actually answer that. If whoever has the most money gets to choose the most mods for their future children.
So it's just like BioShock.
See, what I don't understand, Ted, you mentioned cloning your animals. I could market the crap out of that. Milo forever. I mean, how could you not get investors?
The tech is already there. The tech is already there. There are already companies that do this. You've missed the boat, Tyler.
Well, I clearly haven't, because if they marketed it properly, then everybody would be in on it.
Muy caro. Very expensive, right?
All right, Ted, I got a question for you here.
Sir.
So you've worked with a ton of different founders as a builder and serial entrepreneur and intrapreneur. Mm-hmm. You've also coached a lot of people too. Are there any qualities that you feel like are consistent with founders and leaders that are more successful versus, let's say maybe some qualities that have led to ruin?
So a lot of this is conditional. The people I have seen, generally speaking, be more successful in terms of recruiting people, bringing people in who want to work with them. They're passionate about the mission, but they're compassionate about their people. What it means is understanding that people will have highs and lows and working with them and supporting them and helping them.
Yeah. And not treating people like cogs. Ted, I remember you told me a story one time that somebody described their employees as literally cogs. Tell us more about that. Like what was the context to that?
So I was in a senior leadership role in this particular organization, and at a leadership meeting at one point, one of the senior leaders was referring to various people and referred to them as cogs. And it just ground my gears.
Nice.
The first time, in fact, I heard it, I was like shocked that anyone would speak that way. I don't know, a couple months later or whatever, it happened again. And I actually got really angry. And I said, okay, the first time I could kind of like, okay, this is just a weird thing, but it was somebody else this time. And so I'm thinking, is this how they speak at this level? Because I've never heard this kind of stuff before. The third time it happened, I was ready, right? Because after the second time, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to let this slide again. The third time it happened, I just said, excuse me, I got to interrupt right here. Using that word cogs, has anybody in this room ever aspired to be a cog?
No.
Right? No, because no one does, right? Because nobody wants to be that, right? And so that was a clue to me that at some point I needed to leave the organization or else it needed to change significantly internally. But long story short, it doesn't mean being a softie. It doesn't mean not helping people to achieve. It means helping people to achieve. If you succeed, they succeed. If they succeed, you succeed. This should be a win-win situation.
So I think the next T-shirt, because it seems like every episode there's a new T-shirt idea. A couple episodes ago, it was founders like eating glass. This one's people aren't cogs. There we go. We'll put it on a shirt and print it, boys. Put it on the shirt and print it.
That's right.
All right. Well, let's do the last question here, which is, Ted, out of all your experiences that you've had, a very vast array as we went over today, what are some lessons that you've learned and picked up on that you could help our audience realize and help them with?
Just happens that I've been thinking about this exact question. And I think the first thing is exactly why I'm doing this podcast and why I think this is a really cool idea for you guys to do, which is you can't be afraid of failure. Most of our lives we're taught, don't get a D, don't get an F, get an A, only an A is acceptable. And the fact of the matter is, if you're really pushing the envelope, you're going to have mistakes, you're going to have stumbles, you're going to have out and out failures where you do everything right, but it just doesn't work out. As I said, there's a million ways for a company for a startup in particular to fail. You can't anticipate all of those. So you have to be comfortable from the get-go that things may not work. And so destigmatizing failure, talking about it openly and accepting that it's part of life, but it is not permanent, is an incredibly important piece.
That's why you should totally subscribe to a podcast. It's all about that type of thing. So a quick plug.
Wes, on commission there. But
Crushed it, Wes.
So the next things I would say is the fundamentals in starting a company, right? You want to say, what are you going to do, right? What is it, the thing you're going to do? What problem does that solve? Who is it going to be solving that problem for? What are they willing to pay for that? What is the value to them? What's your competition look like? And then how do you line up investors and prospective clients before you even hire someone? I mean, again, some of the stuff I've done has been biotechs where you get the investment in and then you work it out from there because you have to have the investment in order to prove a concept. That's a perfectly valid business model. I mean, hell, how much money has SpaceX eaten up before they even got a functioning rocket, right?
Yeah, Bowman, your Tesla boy.
They could have eaten more.
Yeah, they could eat a lot more, right? So my point is, development time, capital costs exist. It's okay to have those as long as you have an idea of what it is you're really trying to do and it's a viable business model. I'm going to give you one more, and this is a YouTube video you can watch. It's by a guy named Bill Gross. It's not the guy who founded PIMCO. That's not the guy. It's a different Bill Gross, but it's a TED Talk. And he talks about the five, I think he calls them the 5 key variables of a successful startup. And he said to himself at one point, I've been involved in so many of these damn things. I should be able to figure out what makes for a success and what doesn't. What's important here, right? And so he had the data. So he went out, he looked at ideas, he looked at teams, he looked at business model, he looked at funding, and he looked at timing. Okay, those 5 key variables, all of which are important, all of which matter. None of them is irrelevant, right? They all do matter. But when he crunched the numbers and figured out what was the single biggest thing, any guesses?
Dang it. It's definitely the people, Ted. We got to treat those people right.
Okay. All right.
Or the clone babies. The clone babies. Or the
clone babies. That's right.
Yeah.
With the silver hair. That's right. Tyler, how about you? You got a guess?
Timing. I'm going to go timing.
So ding, 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 ding. One of you is correct, and it's not Josh.
What else is new?
It turns out that all of those do matter, right? You can't succeed without having your pieces in place. But timing is the most important thing. And here's the take home. You are only partially in control of timing. He uses the example of a streaming video service that he helped fund. Ready for this? In the late 90s. Most people were on dial-up and they had to install all this extra software and some hardware. And they would wind up with a large postage stamp size video feed on their screen. Didn't make it. It was not enough of a success because the infrastructure wasn't there. People weren't using high-speed internet. They didn't have it. It wasn't affordable yet. Blah, 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 blah. It was just bad timing. We got blindsided, right? So
yeah.
My point is, and this is the cherry I'd like to put on top, is control what you can control. Do the best you can. Josh, you like that part. I can tell you like the control what you can control because there's stuff you can't control and you have to accept that.
A hard thing to accept sometimes, because we take things personally. But I think it's a great lesson, Ted, and I think it's highlighted a lot of the stories that you've told today. So, a great one to end it on. Great one to end it on.
And timing factors into almost every flop, and Bowman's Find the Flop too.
Yeah, we did a timing one, Ted, like maybe 2 ago, or maybe 2 of these were like what failed just due to timing. So we're like primed for that example.
Well, and yet you didn't get the question right, Josh, but that's okay. Let it go.
Well, I can't think of a better segue. Bowman, let's go into Find the Flop, my friend. What you got for us today?
Find the Flop, everyone's actual favorite segment, just to be super clear. Let's do it. So today, just in case it's your first time listening, this is a segment where we do a very important game show questions. And what we're going to do is I'm going to list out a couple businesses or products, and 3 of them are going to be successful, and 1 of them is going to have flopped. So what you got to do is find the flop. You got to use your business prowess and your knowledge of the macro and the micro, and we got to figure it out as a team.
What other term can you throw out there?
Micro, macro,
Forecast.
Cosmo.
We're dragooning our listeners in. So scoreboard currently, just a quick update before we start. Wes has only gone up a few points recently. He's still at 15, which is still a lot higher than Tyler at 6. I'm at -1 for 1 foul on the field. Nike, I'm so sorry. You do, in fact, still make golf balls and bags. And the guests are absolutely winning. In fact, they're crushing us every time. Today's theme. One of the following brands made some marketing misclaims and was smacked down by the government or the Advertising Standards Authority, the ADA. Can you find the flop marketing misclaim edition? Number 1, Special K. Special K cereal from Kellogg's are advertised with health-centric claims such as full of goodness and nutritious. Number 2, Snickers. Snickers bars are sometimes promoted as a source of protein and energy, a filling snack that satisfies hunger. Number 3, Red Bull energy drink. Red Bull marketing claims that it improves focus and vitality, especially in sports or active lifestyle context. But does it really give you wings? Number 4, Kellogg's Frosted Flakes. This cereal is often marketed as a good source of vitamins and minerals, especially for growing children. Which of these was smacked down by the government or the ADA for marketing misclaims?
I feel like Red Bull's the obvious answer, but I'm gonna go Frosted Flakes.
Yeah, no, I was going to say Frosted Flakes because it involved children, and anytime you throw children into marketing, the stakes get higher.
All right, you can join me in the winner circle, Tyler. Come pick my pick.
I'm gonna do Snickers because I don't think that Snickers is a significant source of protein. So I'm gonna go with that.
Okay. So I think Snickers is the obvious one because it's a great big glob of sugar and salt and fat. So that to me seems nutritionally like the biggest whiff. Although Red Bull is just sweetened water with caffeine, I'm going to go for the counterintuitive one. I'm going to go for the Special K because I think that they are no more nutritious than any other cereal, and especially a claim of goodness is utterly meaningless, right? I mean, it's like this pencil is typified by goodness. This is a goodness pencil. What the hell does that even mean? So I think I'm going to go for Special K because I think that's the sleeper here. That's the one we're all assuming is healthy, and I bet it's no better than Frosted Flakes. It's just got a little less sugar.
Well, let's start with the losers. Tyler, the Snickers have never, their marketing claims, because they're associated with the promotion of energy source, they've never gotten in any trouble at all. Also, Wes, Frosted Flakes, they have a lot of minerals. It doesn't matter that they inject those minerals in just so they can say it, and it's all sugar and carbs anyways. Ted is actually correct. Special K from Kellogg's are advertised as health. When they advertise as health-centric, saying full of goodness, specifically full of goodness and nutritious, they're like, how can you claim that? The ADA banned them from advertising. And then they had to issue an official apology.
Oh, man.
Tough, Special K.
Did they have to say we are not full of goodness? Because that would be great.
No goodness. We're so sorry.
For anybody wondering, Snickers have 3 grams of protein. That is not a significant source of protein. I would have smacked their hand on that.
That's why this is impossible. These are all terrible. All right. Question 2. Which of the following household products was smacked down by the government or the ADA for misleading information? Number 1, Oreo cookies. Oreos stress that they are made with real cocoa, which is a source of antioxidants. Number 2, vitamin water. Marketed as a healthy beverage alternative. It's claiming that it can promote healthy joints, reduce the risk of eye disease, and have other health benefits. Nature Valley granola bars. Often marketed as 100% natural and a great source of whole grains. Number 4, the Tesla Model Y, advertised as superior acceleration and handling, state-of-the-art driver assist technology, and long-range driving.
but only if you put carbon fiber spoilers on it.
Well, I want to capitalize on this and say I'm going with vitamin water because they're making health claims that they can prevent or reduce something. And I guarantee you there are no clinical trials about that. So I'm easily going with and locking in vitamin water.
It doesn't often happen, but I'm going to double down on Tyler. I trust in my man on this one.
Yeah, because he did such a great job on the Frosted Flakes. That's a tough one because I can see all of them. I mean, particularly the self-driving thing. The cocoa thing is vague enough. I think they could get away with it, though. I've done the research. The amount of cocoa in Oreos is vanishingly small. Nature Valley granola bars, they can get away with anything they want as long as they say the word natural, because the word natural has never been legally defined. So it's not that one. I don't think it's really the Oreos. And I think Tesla can get away with it because, again, there's no definition. So we're tripling down on vitamin water. We're all going down together, gentlemen.
I think the first time we've ever had a triple down.
This is the full triple down. And guys, to be totally honest, I thought that Oreos would trip y'all up, but we've got a scientist in the room and he knows how much cocoa is in those things. I baited 0 people into Tesla. All 3 of you. This is a triple victory. Vitamin water was absolutely smacked down by the ADA. And what that meant was actually, it was criticized for its extremely high sugar content, which was not communicated anywhere in any of its claims for being so healthy. The impact was some legal actions, and the end result was just agreement by Vitamin Water, which is Coca-Cola, to highlight the importance of transparent, neutral, nutritional information. The craziest thing of reading through like 50 products and like health claims in the United States, the craziest part is 1, the ADA has no teeth. 2, the government doesn't give a shit. Like straight up, the worst thing that happened is they lied for years, and then they had to change their labels. Oh no.
Well, good list, Josh. I like both of those lists. They were awesome.
What a great job of Find the Flop. The scoreboard has been updated. Wes 16, Tyler 7, and I'm still at -1. The guests are still absolutely winning, and this time it was absolutely true. Good job, everyone.
Wait a minute. Just to be clear, I've been on this podcast once, and I'm already beating you by 3, and I only had to do 2 questions.
Josh goes to -2 after the spoiler on his Tesla. He's been docked. We found the flop, and it's your decision making with your car.
Josh, are you familiar? Are you familiar with the song "Pretty Fly for a White Guy"?
Oh yeah, of course. Weird Al.
Weird Al. That's not Weird Al.
That's not Weird Al.
That's not Weird Al.
It's the Offspring.
Offspring. Sorry, I was thinking of the other one.
Yeah, the other Pretty Fly. The Pretty Fly cover. Yeah.
Or
the other one. Well, let's go into our next segment, the quick hitter questions. Mr. Cope, take us away here.
Yeah, let's close this out. Ted, number 1, what is your biggest pet peeve?
Passwords.
Yeah,
Like
me
changing
too.
them? Or?
Yeah, just like all the time, right? They're constantly, you get into a system you haven't gone into for 3 months, and then you have to scan a god blessed QR code. Yeah, passwords, my pet peeve.
Okay. I'm the same way. Josh can attest to that. All right, number 2, what is the dumbest advice you've ever received?
You're gonna identify. I know you guys are gonna identify. I was in high school, and I was really nervous about the driver's ed driving test. You know, the actual licensing driving test. And one of my friends said, "Oh, don't worry, it's easy. It's a piece of cake." And I get to the driving test, and the driving instructor, he's telling me, do this. The examiner, do this. He told me to park in a parking space, like a parallel parking, and there was a garbage bin that had tipped over, and there was garbage in the space. And he said, "Okay, parallel park in that space." And I said, "You want me to parallel park in that space?" He goes, "Yes, in that space." I said, "Okay, he's the examiner. I have to follow his directions. I parallel park, crunch, 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 crunch. Okay, fine, that's okay." I pull out, I say, "Okay, what's next?" And he goes, "No, there is nothing next. You just failed the test. Please go back to the station." We get to the station, he hands me the sheet. It says, "Failed to anticipate road hazard."
What? That's so lame.
And so I go back to this friend, and it was a guy who goes, "Oh yeah," which was the guy you got? I told him the guy's name. He goes, "Oh yeah, that guy's just a jerk. He fails everybody first time." Terrible.
Ted, I'm going to admit something. I actually failed my written driver's ed test.
The written portion.
The written portion actually ended up passing me, but it was a we graded each other's written tests. So like I had to give my test to the person across from me. I'm sure it's done, on computers now.
When did you take your driving test? Like in the 80s?
It was again, homeschooled, right? We had a homeschooled one. And the guy that was grading my test was a real rule follower. And the guy said, yeah, if you get 10 wrong or whatever the number was, then you got to retake the course, got to redo the whole thing. And my buddy's like, I'm watching him tally these up. And I'm like, no, don't circle it. And he looks at me. He's like, I got to do it.
Did you keep talking to him afterwards? That's the real question.
No. We had beef after that.
No, I hate that guy.
No, I effing hate that guy. All right. Number 3, if you could have an unlimited supply of any one thing that's not money, what would it be, Ted?
Dark chocolate.
Oh, me too. Okay, great.
I like the really dark stuff. I have a theobromine problem.
The question I had was going to be about pineapple pizza, yes or no, but I'm going to revise this. I know you have kids. You've been to CiCi's Pizza. Chocolate pizza, yes or no?
So my CiCi's Pizza story has nothing to do with chocolate pizza, but I have to tell it. We were there. It was a benefit for like the middle school band. And about halfway through the mealtime, there's this cracking sound. And everybody looks around. And this portion of ceiling tile directly over the food bar completely collapses, and this immense amount of water pours from the attic space directly onto all of the pizza there. And there's pieces of ceiling tile, and it's nasty water, and it's just like this.
And then they said, we'll be closed for an hour. We'll be open just a little bit.
I will say that CiCi's Pizza is adequate at best. Chocolate pizza, to get to the answer to your question, chocolate on anything makes it better. So yeah, I would go with chocolate.
All right, last question. If someone handed you $500,000, $500,000, where would you invest it?
Diviner, no question.
Perfect segue.
Perfect segue. And here's why. We've actually targeted $500,000 as our lead investment for our new round. So just to give people a background on Diviner, we are a clinical trial forecasting company. I came on board with this as it was just getting off the ground. We've done a POC for 2 years now. And in each of those 2 years, in separate analyses, we've done forecasting for phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials, which I'm sure you know, many of your listeners probably know, are notoriously hard to get right. They're a huge expenditure. They're extremely expensive experiments. When you're spending $1 billion as a company like Pfizer would in a year, and 900 million of that is going nowhere, that is a wasteful system. We've done this for 2 years now. And we specifically focused on trials that were 50% likely to succeed according to just general analysis, just a real quick look, right? Kind of coin toss kinds of things. And we have developed a system that is so good, we can now predict with 65% accuracy whether a trial will succeed or not. And to be clear, this offers value to individual companies like pharmas that have a portfolio that they want to manage, or they want to look at their competitors and see how likely their competitors are to succeed. Also, we see this as another opportunity for monetization is in creating our own hedge fund. The trials that we focused on, these phase 2 and phase 3 trials, are small to mid caps. The stock typically moves 40% on trial announcement, up or down. Good news, moves up at an average of 40%, or it moves down by an average of 40% if it's bad news.
Whoa. If you could say, hey, we just ran it through this program that's been accurate in the past 3 or 4 times, and we think we're in the 80 percentile of succeeding in our trial, the stock would go crazy.
Correct. And you can forecast that. You can forecast that from a clinical trial perspective. And then you can take a look and see, well, what does the broader market think about this stock? And so I'll give you an example, give you 2 examples. We've done 64 of these trials, 55 of which actually reported over 2 years. Okay. So, sometimes trials get canceled or there's a problem with them and we just scratch those out. They don't count. But of the 55 trials that have reported, we are 65% accurate. If you're from an investing perspective, if you have the ability to forecast the outcome of a stock movement 65% of the time,
you're cooking with grease.
Right? We see the opportunity to use market mechanisms and science to actually drive not only a profitable hedge fund, but also to drive a significant improvement in the quality of medicines in the long term. 2 stories, one good, one not so good. A company that had a product for liver disease, this particular liver disease, very hard to develop for. No one had been successful in the past, but these guys had a totally new mechanism that they were using. And so the market was kind of figuring, they got a small chance. We had a 75% probability of success. When that thing hit, the stock tripled in a day.
Wow.
Similarly, another one, with a trial of an anti-infective for Alzheimer's disease. It was based on a faulty concept. Everybody was thinking, well, if they hit, they're going to be huge because Alzheimer's, my gosh, it's a really important space. But we identified the mechanism of action for the molecule as being extremely weak. And so we gave it a 20% probability of success. It failed and the stock dropped 80% in a day.
Buying them puts.
There you go. There you go. So there's lots of ways you can monetize this thing, but we need about $500,000. We have commitments. If we can raise $500,000 in a lead investor, either a fund or an individual or a consortium, we have people who would come in at the $25,000 and $50,000 level. We have several dozen people who would do that. We could easily raise another $500,000, maybe more. And that would give us enough of a runway that we could do this next stage where we would scale up and forecast more trials and actually monetize based on that. Alternatively, as I said, we could work with large pharmas. So anybody who wants to come to us and work with us, we're happy to have that conversation.
Alrighty, well, that does it for the flop. Ted, thanks so much for coming on and hanging out with us and telling your stories of some mishaps, and super good to hear from you again, my friend.
And great to see you again, Wes. Great to see you again, Tyler. And really nice to meet you, Josh. I think you guys have a really interesting concept here. Again, the thing I would emphasize is what you're doing has, I think, both personal and social value doing this. Because by destigmatizing and demystifying failure and understanding that, again, failure happens, but it's not permanent. And maybe you learn to never get into that space again. Or maybe you learn that, oh, actually, I can do that again, but I need to change what I do. I had a friend recently who was in a bad situation, and he said afterwards he felt like he had been one of those Greek heroes who had gone to hell and come back. And I said, right, so now you have to ask yourself, does that mean you can go to hell regularly? You're going to be okay? Or does that mean you make sure you don't go to hell again? And you need to figure out what is specific for your situation.
Yeah, no, for sure. You're going to be Hades' assistant, or are you going to avoid that path, going forward?
Right, or you're going to go down there with some kind of escape clause, right, that you can pop right back out.
And last plug, if you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. If you want to, I don't know, but it would really help us out, and we would love to keep on making these for you. But that does it for the flop. Everybody, take care. We'll talk to you soon.